Hi, welcome. I see some folks are joining. I was just going to give it a few seconds before we get started to see if anyone else hops on our workshop today. Alrighty, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. I am sharing in the chat box for everyone who is here the link to the workbook that goes along with today's workshop. If you haven't had a chance to go ahead and download that, please make sure that you do so you can follow along and answer some of the questions that come up for exploring your Ikigai. But we're going to go ahead and get started. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Wendy Keeler. I am the Assistant Director of Admissions here at the College for Creative Studies. For those who are new to learning about CCS, we are a four-year art and design college located in Detroit, Michigan. And this is a great topic. The how to pursue your creative purpose is a great topic for CCS because we're all about helping students find their passion, elevate their talent so they can join that next generation of creative change makers. But sometimes it may be confusing to figure out, well, exactly how do I want to go about making change and making a living doing something that I love. So today we're going to teach you all about how to do that with Ikigai, finding and pursuing your creative path. So I am going to turn off my camera during the presentation today and make sure you all can focus on the visuals, but I will be cutting it back on at the end for Q&A, and we will stop our recording at the end during Q&A, and then you can ask any questions that you have without worrying about it being on YouTube somewhere. So I will make sure to stop the recording before we start our Q&A, okay? So let's go ahead and get started with Ikigai. So quick question for you all who are here. I would love to know in the chat box, if you could share with me, how many of you are familiar with the term Ikigai? If you know what it means. If you know what Ikigai means, I want you to put yes in the chat box here on Zoom. And if you do not know what an Ikigai is, you're like, I have no idea what it is. It just was interesting, so I signed up. Make sure to put no in the chat box. So yes, if you are familiar with the term and you know what it means, and put no. If you don't know what it means and you're not familiar with the term Ikigai. So I'll wait for your answers to come through in the chat box here. Okay, so we got a no. Someone's like, what the heck is an Ikigai? Okay. Well, I'm going to answer it. So if you don't know what it is, don't worry. Right? We're not going to skip over any details here. But for those who haven't heard of this term before, Ikigai is a Japanese term meaning a reason for being. It's the reason why people wake up in the morning. It's the thing that makes your life worthwhile. In English, we call the concept of purpose, but in Japan, they've come up with a formula for identifying one's purpose. And me, myself, as the assistant director of admissions at CCS, but also just as a lifelong learner, I have a really huge passion for helping people find and pursue their highest calling. I've spent the last decade mentoring and coaching and advising several students and adults on how to identify and pursue their purpose, right? How to figure out what is it I'm here to do and how do I do it? That's what I've been doing in my career, but specifically at CCS, I've been helping a ton of artists and designers, photographers, media makers, craft people, right? Identify what their Ikigai is and how to pursue that. So the first thing I want to do before I even talk about how to pursue your Ikigai, I might actually talk about why it's important to even learn about this concept to begin with. Why can't you just go ahead and, just go and proceed as normal? Well, I don't know if you're familiar with the 80,000 hours theory, but there's this theory out there that says we spend on average 80,000 hours of our lives in our career. That is a lot of time and a lot of commitment to something, right? And then as a young adult, which I'm assuming most of you are either in high school or early in college, as a young adult, figuring out what you want to do for the rest of your life at 17 or 18, even 21 and 25 years old can be a very daunting task, right? That can induce anxiety in most people, right? And then you add to that anxiety the assignment of choosing a major in a college where you're investing 4 years of your time and thousands of dollars to pursue what you want to do. Then you've got a list of choices that can be really overwhelming really quickly. In fact, according to the National Center for Education Statistics, about 80% of students in the US end up changing their major at least once. And not a lot of students know this, but at many colleges, when you change your major, you can end up adding more time and more time to your degree path and end up paying more for college, right? You can end up spending more because some schools make you repeat certain classes if you change majors. And so Ikigai is helpful because not only is doing the exercise of starting to figure out your purpose now going to help you with more intentional decision making about your major, but it will provide more clarity and confidence about the degree path that you're pursuing. And hopefully, with that clarity and confidence, you're saving time and money in the long run, right? And you're doing work that matters to you. So let's talk about what an Ikigai actually is. This is what Ikigai looks like, this Venn diagram. The star in the middle is your Ikigai. It's the answer to 4 unique questions. What do I love to do? What am I good at? What do I feel the world needs? And what can I get paid to do? When you find something that answers all 4 of those questions at the same time, we call that an Ikigai, right? So if you're pursuing an Ikigai, you want to make sure you're thinking about all 4 of these categories, not just 2 or 3. The reason being is because anything else would be a passion, a mission, profession, or vocation, but not your purpose, right? So for example, you can find something that you're really good at and you can get paid a ton of money to do that thing. You might live a comfortable life doing that, right? But you may end up feeling empty or purposeless. You may feel like you're not using your highest potential, right? This is where I don't know if you all have heard the term of midlife crisis or quarter life crisis, but people look up at 30 and 40 and they ask themselves, what am I doing with my life, right? We want to avoid that, right? Or conversely, if you find that you're doing something that you love and you feel it's something the world needs, right? Many of us love creativity and art, and you're doing something that's making a difference in the world. But if you are not getting paid to do that thing, you're not going to have enough time or energy to invest in it. It's going to be on the side. It's going to be a hobby or a project on the side. And it may not have as large of an impact as it could, right? You also may feel unsettled in your life because you're juggling between your values and your comfort. And you don't want to have to make that compromise, right? You want to be able to eat and help others, right? And so we don't want you to be happy and fulfilled, but can't pay your bills. We don't want you to be, satisfied, but feeling useless, right? And you definitely want to feel excitement when you wake up every day going in to do the work that you're doing for your career, but you want to know that it's impacting more than just yourself, right? And so this is why we want to help students to understand how to pursue their Ikigai and give you some tools today to help you start to explore this explore this concept early on. So before we start to explore your specific Ikigai, I'm going to give you some examples of how diverse Ikigais can look, right? We have so many examples throughout the years here at CCS of students who've graduated, who've pursued their Ikigai, and they're loving their lives and the ability to use their skills and their degree from CCS to make a difference in the world. So I want to show you what that looks like in real time. Again, feel free to follow along in your workbook. So the first example is Todd Smith. Todd came to CCS for graphic design, but he loved art and soccer. And so I want to explain how he sort of made these things come together. And I'm actually going to read a direct quote from Todd about pursuing his path. He says, "For as long as I can remember, there have been 2 constants in my life, art and sport. In school, I was constantly yelled at for drawing too much in class. And regardless of the weather, I was always outside, kicking, throwing, or chasing a ball around. Eventually, I realized my passions could become a career and that Nike could be a perfect destination for me to pursue both of them at the same time. So after graduating from the College for Creative Studies, I moved to Oregon and made my goal a reality. Simple as that, really. 19 plus years later, I'm still here chasing after my original childhood passions day in and day out. Lucky me." So I have a screenshot here of Todd's resume on the right, and you'll see that all of his positions have been design-based, right? He's using what he became good at here at CCS. But in his role as a senior designer for global football equipment at Nike, Todd has led teams of designers responsible for soccer balls, shin guards, goalie gloves. They have an actual field there. So he's been able to play, right? And he also mentors young designers. So he's combining all the things he loves and is good at in a way that he's making a difference in the creative industry and getting paid to do that. Veronica Scott is another great example. She actually discovered her Ikigai during her junior year studying product design at CCS. I'm actually going to play a video of her explaining how she discovered the difference she wanted to make in the world using what she loves to do, because she knew what she was good at. She's becoming good at CCS, and she knew what she loved to do, but wasn't quite sure how she'd make a difference in the world. And an assignment at CCS made all the difference for her.
You know, this all started off as a class project out of College for Creative Studies here in Detroit. And I was studying product design at the time and ended up getting my degree in product design, so no fashion background and no experience in sewing. And this was a class project out of a studio. And the whole point of the studio was to design to fill actual needs rather than design pretty, shiny, fast things that ended up becoming trash, and how to actually fill needs with products. And so I ended up spending a lot of time on the streets in this area, specifically in a shelter called NSO. Having the people on the streets be a part of the design process became really important, and then eventually realizing that the coat itself didn't really matter. Because really a coat is a Band-Aid for a bigger, more systemic issue. And I only realized that when going back to the shelter with this finished coat sleeping bag, and at the time it wasn't exactly the sleekest thing in the world, going back to the shelter with this coat, there was a woman that actually ended up yelling at me. And she's saying, you know, we don't need coats, we need jobs. And she was entirely correct, because a coat, like I said, on its own doesn't amount to much, but it has far more impact when it can affect the people in the community in a way of not just giving them something, but helping them stay employed and really employ the people that were gonna receive the coat in the first place.
When I first came to the empowerment plan, I was homeless at the time, and now I see a lot of people with the coat on, and I tell them, I stop and tell them I'm happy to see it on them, and I made that coat, I'm with the company that makes it, and they thanks me. They said, it's really warm, and it's like, wow. So, it's a blessing. I look at it as a great blessing.
We only hire from shelters, because usually the people inside of those shelters are pretty much blacklisted from a lot of other jobs. And they're really not valued as much as they should be, and as seen as somebody that can learn and grow and rise to a challenge and come out the other side even stronger than when they started. So we hire for multiple different reasons, but these are the people that are not normally given that chance to apply for jobs. And I go in there saying, this is your opportunity for a clean slate. One of the things I enjoy the most is seeing the transition someone makes when they first start with us to the person they really are. Everyone we hire is kind of in a survival mode. They're not sure where they're sleeping at night. They're not sure where their next meal is going to come from. They're not positive about any of that. So they're living kind of from moment to moment. And they're still also out there looking for jobs and looking for employment, ways to get in money. And that person has pushed all of their actual personality, who they are, down so much to just survive and to take care of their family. And so seeing somebody come in and they're always very quiet, and I can tell you this is the same for everyone on here, you're like, oh, everybody's so quiet. They're very dedicated to the job. They want to prove that they're not going to fail, that they're worth it, that, it was worth taking a risk on them. And I don't think of it as a risk. I think of it as a great investment in someone. And so they're so quiet, and then a couple months as we go on and as we give them that opportunity to make mistakes and not have it be the end of the world or the end of their job, they start to open up a lot more, and then the personalities come out. And then the hair gets done, and the nails and the clothes, and all of a sudden there is this person again with an identity that is theirs and not in survival mode. Never in a million years did I think that a class project I did while going to school, it would ever become a business, let alone anything that actually had a real lasting effect on anybody. To know that the women feel more stable and that they can offer and provide a better life for their kids, that they know where they're going to sleep at night, that know they can feed and clothe their children, that they're going to have a meal ready for them when they come home from school, and know that they can get them to school, are all things I'm so happy, and I wouldn't have even believed years ago if you told me that I could have done.
Such a powerful story, right? And Veronica, that company she started, the Empowerment Plan, started with just 3 workers and some small seed funding from CCS connections and material. And it's rapidly grown to become a $4.5 million enterprise. That's how much her business is worth. So again, she's paid as a founder of this nonprofit. But now over 50,000 coats have been distributed to people in need across the US and 20 countries across the world. And to date, she's been able to hire 95 individuals, primarily, like she said in the video, women who are homeless with families. And she's been able to move every single one of those 95 individuals from the homeless shelter into permanent housing within 4 to 6 weeks of working for her. And not a single person has fallen back into homelessness. Among her many accolades, Veronica is the youngest person to win the JFK New Frontier Award. Carolyn Kennedy actually says she's changing the world one coat at a time. But her company is saving lives. They actually, during the pandemic, still had a record for no one falling back into homelessness. All of her employees were fine. And she was able to partner with local nonprofits to produce PPE, right, for frontline doctors, nurses, and hospital workers. And her business is so successful that it's branching out into other cities. This is what it looks like to pursue an Ikigai. Another great example is Rachel Elise Thomas. Sorry, my slides are getting ahead of me here. She's a documentary photographer and collage artist that uses her art to explore African-American life, culture, and tradition. So being a collage artist and editorial photographer has given her the versatility to tell a lot of different types of stories. But she's been primarily using her own passions for Black culture, along with her passion for changing some of the issues we see in the African-American community, and starting conversations with her work with people. She's putting work out there with messages that revolve around identity and ancestry and spirituality, while tackling topics like overconsumption, vanity, materialism, colorism, sexism, and racism. And to date, her work has been published by the New York Times, the New Republic, Rolling Stone magazine, the Marshall Project, In Style, and countless other publications. And because she has a fine arts photography practice, she also has the great satisfaction of exhibiting her work in gallery shows. She's been fortunate to be a part of 2 fellowships and 2 artist residencies programs thus far in her career. And she just graduated in 2019. Wendy FROUD is an American doll artist, sculptor, and puppet maker. She's best known for her work fabricating Yoda for the 1980 Star Wars film, The Empire Strikes Back. But this is not something that was new for her, this love for sculpting and making these fantastical creatures that you see here on the screen. She started making her first dolls when she was 6, right? This is something she's always loved. And her advice for a life well lived is to find something that you truly believe in and that you wish to share with the world. And what she wants to share with the world is imagination. She loves fairies. She believes in fairy tales and magic. And she's bringing that art and world to life through her art. And when I say she's paid as a puppet maker and a doll artist, I mean, Wendy FROUD is paid. She lives in a castle in England, for God's sakes. That's what happens when your passion leads you to making world famous puppets like Yoda, right? Another great example is Jason Mayden. Growing up, Jason was obsessed with Michael Jordan, that was his icon, but he also loved sports. And so he came to CCS to study product design, where he was studying footwear design. He wanted to design athletic gear. And I want to actually play a video of him explaining how he explored and discovered his Ikigai, but also how it changed over time. Your purpose can change as the world changes, as your life circumstances change, right? There are a lot of people who had one purpose prior to the pandemic and have another one now. And I think Jason shows a great example of what it looks like when you have to pivot with your purpose, with your Ikigai.
You have to be comfortable in the skin that you're in, because by you being comfortable with your dream, you allow someone else to have their dream.
Before becoming a co-founder and CEO of a Silicon Valley startup, Jason Mayden spent over a decade at Nike. He approaches design like the athletes he worked with, constantly practicing his craft, training in the off-season, and staying ready for game time. Here's how he got here.
My upbringing in Chicago informed my design craft because of being industrious, being communicative, being creative was just in the fabric and DNA of people on the South Side. Growing up, we heard stories of Michael Jordan shooting 1,000 free throws a day.
Michael, what he's done is he's been able to get to the free throw line. He's 6 of 6.
I applied that same cadence and discipline to my craft. From freshman year all the way up until now, I typically try to average about 1,000 sketches a day. I'm constantly moving my hand to make sure that I'm in that rhythm so that when I'm called into the game like Michael, I'm already ready to go. Everyone assumes that, I succeeded on my first try to get into Nike. Unfortunately, I did not. I was rejected 3 times and it hurt, but you brought up the wound and it's so soon. No, I'm just kidding. But once I got there, I had the good fortune of being Nike's first African-American design intern. I worked on everything from lace tips to a shoe called the AJ-17 Mule that went to production. And by the end of my internship experience, I was given a full-time role. So I went back to CCS in Detroit where I was studying industrial design. And then I went back to fulfill that full-time role. Throughout my 14 years of being at Nike, I went from being an intern to an executive, and I did everything from branding for athletes to strategy to understanding supply chain, working on everything from soft goods to software, from footwear to firmware. I threw myself into the business fully because I wanted to learn. Along my journey in design, I had always desired to advocate for the creative voices that weren't present in the room when business decisions were being made. So I went and I applied for business school at Stanford Graduate School of Business. When I was working at Nike, I knew that I had a gift for working with athletes and working on physical product. It wasn't until I came to Stanford that I discovered that my process and how I thought was actually my true skill, and that was transferable to any industry. I've had the great fortune in my career to work with legends and icons such as Michael Jordan himself, Derek Jeter, Carmelo Anthony, Chris Paul, Eminem, Russell Westbrook. It was a tremendous experience that broadened what I believed were my opportunities in the world. Most innovation is born from unfortunate circumstances. My son, had developed a health condition that made him not love who he was. And as any father would do, you put everything on the line for your family. So I walked away from my dream job. I went back to Stanford, worked as a researcher at the D School, and found solutions to help my son. And then I fell upon this idea. Super Heroic is a company that focuses on what we call multimodal play. So it's essentially trying to reinvent the way children interact with the built environment and the world in which they live. Some of the skills that I find very applicable and helpful in the design industry is the willingness to persist in the face of ambiguity. It's critically important that we run towards those question marks because that's where we find discoveries and breakthroughs and innovations that can change the world and change society. The lesson I would tell students is that no one is expecting you to be perfect, but people expect for you to be disciplined. Discipline is what wins games.
The Chicago Bulls have won their 6th NBA championship.
Discipline is what makes the difference between someone who succeeds and someone who doesn't. Also, be patient. So many of us are pushed to succeed rapidly. There's no such thing as an overnight success. There are people who've been in motion for years and we're just seeing the end result. So be patient with yourself, be patient with your process, always stay learning, and you'll have a very fruitful, enjoyable life and career.
And Jason certainly has had a fruitful life and career, right? When you are passionate about your profession, but it also makes a difference in the lives of others, you get noticed across the world, right? So Jason's been featured on multiple most inspiring lists, including Fast Company's 100 Most Creative People in Business and Ebony's Power 100. A really fun fact is he's made such a large impact that he has his own holiday in Austin, Texas. March 17th in Austin, Texas is actually Jason MAYDEN Day, which is pretty awesome. So these are some examples of what it looks like, but let's talk about what your Ikigai could look like. We're going to start to ask ourselves these 4 questions. And for each of the 4 questions, I want you to start to write down some of the answers. Now, I'll give you some things to consider for each. So starting with question number 1, what do I love to do? I want you to make a list of everything you love to do. What do you do in your spare time? What are your hobbies or your interests? What are your favorite classes or school groups that you participate in? What did you love doing or thinking about when you were a kid, right? With Wendy FROUD, she was making dolls, right? With, Todd Smith, he was playing soccer. What have you loved since you were a little kid, right? What do you do without people telling you to do it? What are you self-motivated to do? I know there's some things that I enjoy doing that people ask me to do, and then there are things that I would do for free if no one even asked me to do it. I just do it all day, every day. What are those things? I want you to write those down, right? If those don't give you enough variety, because you want to have a few things to explore and experiment with, if that doesn't give you enough variety, I want you to find a theme by doing an exercise called a love audit, where you are looking at all the content you're consuming to find an overlapping theme, right? Because there's some students that are like, I don't know. I mean, I like art, but I don't do it all the time. I don't know. So I'm like, okay, look at your common Google or YouTube search terms, right? Who are the people that you're following on social media that inspire you or excite you? Look at all the books that you own. Is there a theme with the types of books that you own or the type of books or articles that you read, right? Is there a theme in the type of content that you watch on Netflix or Hulu? I know for me, I should have known, but I've always, like as a kid, I was watching Bob Ross, I was watching Project Runway, every competitive art show that exists on Netflix right now, I've watched, right? I just love creativity, right? Right? If you don't know what you love to do, is there someone who you see them loving what they love to do and that interests you, right? Look for any themes and write a list of things that you love to do. And I should say for this first one, it doesn't have to be things that tie into what you think you may want to do for a career, right? You may love, eating tacos, right? You may love listening to music. I want you to really get diverse with that list. Second question. What am I good at? I want you to write a list of all the things you're good at. And here are some places to look if you aren't sure what you're good at. The first is, what skills or talents do you naturally have? Do you have great rhythm? Are you a good dancer? Do you always look stylish, right? What classes do you get A's in? A lot of students who come to CTS, they are typically getting A's in those art classes or photography classes, video classes, right? What do your friends and family members always ask you to help with? Are there things that people are constantly asking you favors, right? Are there people saying, can you please design our t-shirt for this club or the logo for this event or the flyer for this thing at church? Or, if people are always asking you to take photos of them, right? You're the best at taking photos, take our photo. Maybe that's something you're good at, right? Also, think of the last few times you received praise or an award for something, and what was that thing, right? We have so many students who come to CCS who are receiving awards at their local art fair or scholastics awards, and they're like, well, I don't think I'm good at art. I'm like, but you received an award. That is a clue that there's some latent talent there, right? And then another way of thinking of what you want to be, what you are good at, is also at this young of an age in life, asking yourself, what do I want to become better at? Maybe you are not the world's best drawer right now. Maybe your photos aren't that great right now, but you want to be better at it. You feel a passion pull for growing your skills for something, right? If you feel like, oh, I wish I was better at this, I want to be better at this thing, that is a place to look at for answering this question as well. Because where you are right now, what you're good at right now is not going to be the only things you're great at for the rest of your life, right? You gain skills. So if there's certain skills that you want to grow, things you want to be better at, areas for growth, write those down in this circle too, okay? Next question we're going to answer. I want you to write down all the things you can think of that you feel the world needs. What will make this world a better, healthier, happier, more whole place in your opinion, right? The best way of answering this question is to just ask yourself, if you could change 3 things about the world or society, what would you change? I know when I was asking myself this question, the first thing that came to mind is everyone would be pursuing their purpose. I would think that the world would be a much better place. Adults would be less miserable. There'd be less wars and crime if people were actually doing things that they love or were passionate about. I remember when I first heard the story that Hitler was denied art college. He was actually denied to art school. And then, you saw what his backup choice was. I thought, man, if only he had been encouraged to pursue a path that was more in alignment, right? Hurt people hurt people. And so I think about what people who are living in their passion are able to do for the world. People who are living in their purpose are able to create for the world. So that's something that I would change about the world. Everybody would be pursuing their purpose. They'd be self-aware and fulfilled before they even turn 30. That's mine. But what about you, right? Also, what are social causes that you're passionate about? I know there's students who are always signing up for rallies or volunteering for certain causes, right? Is it Black Lives Matter? Is it Stop Asian Hate? Is it LGBTQIA rights, right? Is it your local place of worship, right? I want you to think about the things you're passionate about and spend time actively currently trying to improve and ask yourself, okay, is that a way I want to make change for the rest of my life, right? You can also use your personal experiences of adversity to seek out areas where you want to make a difference, right? Maybe you want to solve a problem that you personally faced so that others don't have to experience that. I know in Veronica Scott's story, she didn't share that she grew up to drug addicted parents and have experienced situations where they were displaced. And so her work is not only saving lives, but she knows intimately the difference she's making for people, right? Or maybe you want to help others in a way that you've been helped. Maybe someone has come into your life and made a huge difference, and you want to be able to do the same for others. I know some of the biggest influences in my life were my art teachers. They were my mentors at school, and my admissions counselor at CCS, Sabrina Nelson, who still works here, Missions Council of the Stars, is one of my biggest mentors and influences on my life. And so, look at people who made a difference for you and see if you'd like to pay it forward to others. And also, a last place to look for answering this question is, who do you find to be inspiring or motivational in your life? What difference are they making in the world, right? I know in addition to looking up to a lot of artists, I was actually, in my younger days, looking up to people who are actually motivating people, like motivational speakers and life coaches. Those are the people who really got me excited. And so it helped me to figure out how to combine my love for creativity with this love for coaching and counseling and guiding people, which is why I'm currently sitting in my Ikigai here at CCS. But ask yourself, who do you find to be inspiring and motivational? And then lastly, what can I get paid to do? This is the one that scares most people away from pursuing an Ikigai that's related to the arts, right? People falsely assume that what they love won't make them money. And so they just don't even do the research to see what's possible, right? They just drop their dreams without even pursuing them. Now, I can't speak to every industry out there, but if you're interested in art and design, you will be happy to know that there are thousands upon thousands of ways that people get paid as creative thinkers and doers. And when I say paid, I don't mean like, oh, it's a side hobby, side job. I mean, these are the salary, I have the hiccups all of a sudden. Good gosh. But these are the salary ranges for the varying majors, right? So yes, communications designers make, graphic designers make $45,000 to $118,000 a year, but crafts people make $43,000 to $93,000 a year. Product designers make $64,000 to $100,000 a year. Interior designers make $48,000 to $89,000 a year. All of the fields of art and design, fine artists can make anywhere from $43,000 to $93,000 a year. These are livable wages, right? These are not starving artists that we're talking about. I know for our graduates, the starting salary for kids who are 21, 22, just getting out of college is $51,000 to $81,000 per year, right? We have high-level performers coming through our program at CCS, right? So when we talk about getting paid to do what you love, art is a way to do that. In fact, there are, in the US alone, nearly 700,000 businesses that employ millions of people. Artists make up over 2 million of those workers. And when we talk about the way that these people are contributing to our world, we're talking about the arts, which includes design, contributing more than $800 billion to the US economy, right? According to the National Endowment for the Arts, the visual arts employ more than the performing arts and the sports industries combined, right? Working artists and designers influence every facet of culture that we experience, such that the creative culture and art industry globally provides 30 million jobs. That's over $2 trillion economic impact across this globe, right? And you see it every day and may not even realize it, right? Someone gets paid, is doing what they love when they're designing the footwear that we wear, the fashion that we're wearing, right? The shoes and accessories we wear on a day-to-day basis. Product designers design and create the products that we use every day. Concept designers design the characters and the worlds, the vehicles that we see in movies and in video games. Directors, writers, visual effects artists, producers, they create the movies and TV shows that we watch, right? Cinematographers and so much more. Creative directors, copywriters, right? Art directors, they work on commercials in between the shows and content that we watch, but every other type of media that we see, whether it's online content, blogs, speaking on behalf of brands and social causes and celebrities, they're getting brands to be more ethical and inclusive. And then you think about, things that make us feel good on rough days, like the entertainment artists creating the cartoons and video games that we love, the craftspeople creating the objects that shift and influence culture, the people who are making, our vases, our glasses, our jewelry that we wear, the textile and the furniture that we're sitting on and inside the vehicles that move us around, right? Furniture artists designing high-end furniture, glass artists making the stained glass windows and places of worship and other functional and artistic glass pieces, right? You think about the interior designers designing the interior of the room you're sitting in right now, right? Or our hospitals, our airports, our schools, our offices, our places of worship, our vehicles, the commercial spaces that we shop in, the exhibits that we see at auto shows and in museums, or trend forecasters and color material designers influencing the look and feel of everything that we buy. You think about communications designers, graphic designers, brand managers doing the logos that we see and the packaging on everything we consume, but also the interaction designers that influence every website or app that we use, right? Every website we visit, app that we use. Transportation designers imagine and design the vehicles that get us around this planet, whether they be cars or motorcycles or boats or jets or bikes or planes, right? They innovate the future of how we'll move around this planet through autonomous vehicle design and mass transit. Photographers, they're paid to shoot the images that we see on billboards, online, and in magazines, on social media, right? Whether it's commercial photography for the industry or documentary photography for news outlets or fine art photography that we see in museums and galleries. Practicing studio artists, they make art that causes us to stop and think and feel and appreciate the beauty in life. Illustrators, right? Whether it's work that's in a museum or art that's in our world, right? They're making the images that move our society forward, right? We think about artists that are not even producing art, but making art accessible to everyone else, right? Curators, art historians, gallery owners, leaders in art industries, right? Art teachers, right? All of these people are paid to do what they do, right? A living wage. So when you want to know how to get paid to do something that you're creatively interested in, here are some ideas. Here are some places to look. First, look at the career or job pages of companies that you admire, right? Are there companies that you just love the brand? You may not even know what you can do for them, but you're like, I love Nike or Adidas or Apple or Google or CNN, National Geographic, Cartoon Network, right? The MoMA, right? BuzzFeed. Look at companies that you love and just look at their job listing, right? These are just a few of the companies that our alumni are going on to work, right? Some people may think, well, what would I do creatively at Apple? But there's so many opportunities, right? So look at the job and career pages of those companies that you love. But also, if you have a college major you're interested in, but you're not sure if it pays, look up the salary ranges for the various jobs that graduates from that major have, right? So this is just a small list of some of the many jobs that our graduates are doing in their career, right? So you may think, okay, I'm interested in animation, but I don't know all the different career paths. Well, there's, yes, animators, but also 3D modelers, armature builders, there's background painters, there's character artists, right? If you think about glass, right? I'll go back a few slides. I've had students that are like, I like glass art, that seems interesting, but what in the heck can I do? I mean, you could literally be a museum director, a lighting designer, a production artist, a studio director, a commissioned artist selling your actual work, right? A museum manager. There's so many things you can do within each of these degree paths. So start to look it up and see how much they make. It would definitely demystify some of your fears that you may have about pursuing art, right? But also, I want to talk about how you can start to pursue the answer to these overlapping questions, right? After you write down your list for each of these 4 questions, you don't want to start to combine them, right? Well, how do these fit together? Some of the ways they fit together may be unlikely, and that's where you can get support in pursuing your Ikigai, right? So as a high school student, it's pretty easy to know what you love or what you want to become better at. And you can even figure out what the world needs. College is a great way of growing the skills to be better at that thing and connecting with opportunities that allow you to work in the field and get paid to do that, right? So college is, I know, shameless plug, but a very easy way to pursue one's Ikigai. You have a lot of resources and support. But also, if you just want to start right now exploring like what Ikigai can look like, outside of talking to college reps, you can start the conversation with yourself by asking Google. You may start to discover careers that exist that align with all 4 areas of your Ikigai that you may not have known of before. So I tell students to do this exercise where they're doing a keyword search and they're pulling one word or phrase from each of the 4 areas of their Ikigai, right? So I actually walk you through an example I did with a student. I was asking a student, what do you love? Not what art do you love, what do you love? The student was obsessed with nail polish. All the Instagram pages that they followed were people doing crazy nail art, and they loved posting on social media. They actually just really, that's what they would do for free all day. If no one told them what to do and they didn't have to do anything else, they'd be on social media. I asked the student, well, what are you good at? And they were good in their English classes. Those were the classes that they were excelling in most. Not even necessarily their art classes, but their English classes where they were best. But they also had a good natural eye for coordination. People were asking them to help with their prom outfits, help styling them. Their friends want them to go to the mall with them to pick out outfits, right? So they had a natural eye for design. When I asked the student what they felt the world needs, they said they want women to feel more confident in their beauty. They want people to feel beautiful and recognize that everyone can be beautiful, regardless of their different, different shapes, sizes, colors, etc. So we put in an answer for each of her 4 quadrants into a Google search. We put nail polish, right? We put job, because that's how you get paid to do something. We put beauty, and we put writing into a Google search. The result that came back, the first thing that came back was, who names nail polishes? It was actually a question that came back. And me and the student were like, let's explore, let's see. She discovered that the person who names nail polishes is a brand manager or a copywriter that works in a cosmetics company. When we looked at how much that job is paid, how much that person makes, we learned that brand managers on average earn $79,480 a year. So the student learned, oh yes, I can get paid to name nail polishes. But she also discovered that brand managers do so much more than naming nail polishes. They actually get to test the products, which was really exciting for her. They get to manage entire product lines of beauty products. They decide what products should launch or which shouldn't. They do copywriting, which is where you write taglines, ads, social media, right? And they get to decide what products should look like. They actually use their eye for design to determine what looks good for a brand, for a cosmetic brand. And they actually look over and manage social media, right? All the things that the student loved existed in one career path where she could get paid dang near $80,000 a year to do it, right? And that was a career she did not know about before exploring the concept of Ikigai, right? So that's one way of doing it, doing a Google search with some of these words, right? So like I mentioned earlier, if you love tacos, you may be like, I don't know, I just love tacos. I'm really good at photography. I like taking pictures. Maybe food photography has something that can be a hint for your Ikigai, right? I know a lot of students who are food photographers, they not only get to shoot images that help small businesses and restaurants really empower entrepreneurs, but they also get to eat a lot of amazing food, right? It doesn't have to be something that you already know exists, right? It doesn't have to be something that makes the most sense as you're exploring this concept. I know for me, as a high school student, I didn't know that admissions counselor was a role. I didn't know that there was a job where I could look at art all day, every day, help students, because I always loved working with students and volunteering with youth groups, but also getting paid to travel the world and talk about careers in art. This is something that I didn't know existed, right? Until I explored my Ikigai. Another great way of starting to pursue your Ikigai is looking for mentors who are following their own Ikigai, right? You don't want to necessarily, not saying you can't, but you may not want to take advice from people who don't like their jobs or who are miserable, who aren't excited when they wake up. They may not give you the best career advice, right? You want to look to people who are doing things that they love, who are living a successful life, and ask them about their journey. What advice would they give to someone who's interested in a similar path? Or just generally, what advice would they give to someone who is interested in living a life where they're happy doing what they do for a living, right? High school counselors are also a great resource for learning about opportunities to shadow someone in their career, learning about career paths or colleges to consider, right? CCS is a great option for students interested in pursuing a creative Ikigai, but we aren't the only one, right? And so your high school counselor can help guide you. But these are some great ways of exploring it. One big way that allows students neglect to consider is getting hands-on early on. In high school, looking at pre-college summer experiences, dual enrollment classes, opportunities to shadow, doing high school level internships, anything that allows you to get into that place you think you're interested and try things, right? I know for me, I did a pre-college experience in high school because I thought I wanted to be a transportation designer. I fell in love with the creative process and with design, but I learned really quickly I didn't want to draw cars for the rest of my life. And that saved me from investing college tuition dollars in a major that would not have been a good fit. There's so many students, not just creative students, in all areas who have never tried at an in-depth level the thing they're interested in. I know so many students who are like, I love cartoons, so I think I want to do animation. But when they sit down to draw those 30 frames per second, they're like, oh, this is not actually what I want to do, right? Or the opposite is true, right? But you want to get hands-on early on. And CCS has many great opportunities through our pre-college office and our dual enrollment classes to get hands-on, to explore the areas you may be interested in, to see if it's a good fit. But in conclusion, I want to say that if you feel that art or design, media or craft, video, any of these things are a part of potentially what could be your Ikigai. If you wrote down in any of those 4 questions, anything that's related to art or design, I want you to know that CCS is here to help you pursue your Ikigai, right? We have resources, faculty, students, staff that are interested in supporting you in pursuing your creative goals. We want to find and help support that next generation of creative change makers. So if that's you, please reach out to us. We're here to support you. So with that, I'd love to stop here and answer any questions that you have. I'm actually going to stop our recording here and answer any questions you